I'll start with a story, though, not my story. It was June 24th, 2012. It was around 3:30 p.m., and I had just landed Cairo International Airport on assignment. I made it from the Cairo International Airport to downtown Cairo in 15 minutes. Anybody who knows Cairo, at 3:30 p.m. on a Sunday, that's an impossible achievement, to make it in 15 minutes to downtown. But that was the day that most Egyptians in the world were watching for the official announcement of the presidential elections in 2012. So the Egyptians in the world were watching, and I had rushed just to the hotel where we had space for work. I was working for CNN back then. So I ran to the working space, and everybody was already busy doing live shots. It was the norm, but there was one person in one corner, one of our producers, one of our best producers at CNN back then, and he was worried. I thought it was a personal matter at the time, but when the official announcement was made, his reaction was very interesting to me. He was on the phone, I think he was talking to family, and then he paused, he stopped his phone, he fell to the couch, and a couch that was behind him. And then he almost started weeping. I later learned that he was actually upset because in his own understanding of things, he didn't like the results. He realized that the country he loves, Egypt, was headed to the wrong direction. He didn't like the Muslim Brotherhood. However, for the next 2 years, he's a young journalist. For the next 2 years, he learned how to balance reporting, how to balance coverage, to understand the Muslim Brotherhood, to report the truth, become objective, become professional, and to represent all views. That journalist's name is Mohammed Fadel Fahmy. I don't know if Osama has his picture. He later left CNN in 2013 to join Al Jazeera English and became a senior producer of the bureau chief for Al Jazeera English in Cairo. On December 29th of that year, he was arrested along with 2 other Al Jazeera English reporters, journalists, and were accused for working with the Muslim Brotherhood, an outlawed or banned group at the time. And he has been in jail since then. He was a great friend, and he still is, and I'm close to his family. It is so sad that we see stories like that happen over and over again. If nobody knows Muhammad, this is a picture that you saw earlier of him. That was when he was in Cairo. He was in Canada because he's Egyptian Canadian. He left a very good job in Canada and another one that was very good in Dubai to make it to Cairo back in 2011 to work as a freelance journalist at the time. He came to Egypt, and as most of you know, when you appreciate a journalist, you have to ask him, who are your sources and who are your contacts? He came to Egypt in early January 2011 with 6 contacts. I've seen his list. None of them were influential, and none of them were associated with the Muslim Brotherhood. However, he worked so hard because he was so dedicated, he was so objective, and he's very professional. It's so hard to see people like that, and along with others, like Peter Greste and Bahar Mohammed, also with Al Jazeera English, to go to jail and for protecting other people, for protecting the views of other people, to represent other people. Despite the fact that it is really shameful to see things like that, it is very honorable to defend the truth, to defend the people who you disagree with. It is very honorable to be caught doing exactly that action. And that is really the premise of what freedom of expression is. And that is the point that I want to make, only if you get anything from me today, is that it's that when you defend your opponent's views, that is actually achieving freedom of expression. And I'm sure you probably agree with that, John. And it's not necessarily you coming out and expressing the views. You might have the platform, you may not. But when you have the platform to defend others, That is when you have actually achieved freedom of expression and you have achieved an honorable thing. And that is what Mohammed Fahmy, Imperial President, and Zahir Mohammed, along with many others, because as you said, 20 others are in Egyptian jails. They are doing exactly that. And that is what we need to remind ourselves, along with the other tragic stories that we've heard today. Unfortunately, many Egyptians lack the understanding of freedom of expression. They lack the understanding that freedom of expression and actually having an environment when there is free exchange of views leads to the truth. It is that leads to the truth. I sincerely believe that no matter what I say or my opponents say, if there is an environment in which we both or all freely exchange views and express ourselves freely, that is when we actually see truth prevail. One of our founding fathers, President George Washington, once said, "If freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep to the slaughter." And I really, really worry that this is where Egypt is headed, or maybe is very close to. I think all Egyptian governments since February 2011, since the revolution, since SCAF took over, and all the rest until today, they have in one way or another manipulated or tried to manipulate the media with various degrees of success or failure. According to Reporters Without Borders, in the last 3 years, at least 10 journalists have been killed in connection with their work. 50 have been injured, more than 200 arrested, including 60 since last year's military coup, with, as we've heard, at least 20 remaining in jail today. Under the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, or SCAF, which governed, again, from February 2011 to June 2012, when President Morsi took over. Journalists were tried before military courts, intimidated, and there were many new intimidation tactics applied, and lawlessness flourished. I was personally harassed back in February 2011 covering the revolution. I was leaving the hotel to another hotel for security reasons because it's gotten so bad. And it was me, a British journalist with me, and we took a taxi with a bunch of equipment so we could transfer it to the other hotel. And the rest of the team behind us was coming. We were stopped by plainclothes, what I think is Interior Ministry agents, and they stopped us, they looked at our IDs, they took it, and nearby there was a military checkpoint. They did nothing at that time. They saw us and they did nothing. It was only after when the police started pulling us out of the taxi and they started beating the taxi driver, and then the taxi driver made a lot of noise, grabbing other people's attention, that we started seeing the military, coming over as well. And that is when, quote unquote, helped us. They helped us by, taking us in a corner, and they searched us, they opened everything, and it was also another tactic of intimidation to journalists. You've touched on females in Egypt. Female journalists have been attacked sexually, and there's so many cases of that, including an American Egyptian one. Dina Amir, a very close colleague of mine, also worked for CNN for a while. And she's also one of the co-producers of the award-winning movie The Square, which documents what happened in Egypt from the revolution up until July 3rd, or June 30th of last year. So she was sexually assaulted, and guess who actually saved her? It was also Mohammed Fahmy, because he went by and there was some protest outside the Israeli embassy, and there was violence breaking, and it was a gang that tried to rape her. And he came by and he pulled her away, and he got help also from decent people to help her. So journalists have also been victims of this. Just the last point I want to touch on, that it's, in my humble opinion, that it's really sad that what we've all discussed, all the issues that have been discussed, or most of the issues that have been discussed, all the issues that are facing journalists as well working in Egypt. The state of Egyptian media, as described by Dr. Muhammad. Even the military-backed government's various human rights abuses explained by our colleagues and activists here. The entire current political structure in Egypt, and even the 2013 military coup itself, are all byproducts of the power struggle for influence between Saudi Arabia and its backers in the Gulf on one side, and Voices of Freedom on the other, but as well as also some influence from others like Qatar and Turkey and their backers. So it is really sad that people have been scapegoated in the middle of all that. And to see lives have been lost, people have been killed, some are missing, and some are still in jail. But it is one way, as described on other panels, the last one way forward, I think, that can be very successful immediately is to increase international pressures on the Egyptian government and its sponsors, and to pressure it to change course as much as possible. And it might be case by case. It might be by establishing international campaigns to release prisoners, bringing awareness about human rights abuses, as we've discussed, sponsoring independent reports to expose the corruption and other violations in the country. That way, so we could at least see justice for all the innocents that are caught in the middle as scapegoats, including my colleagues, again, Mohammed, Peter, and Bahir. And I don't want to forget one of my colleagues, Abdullah Shami. He is with Al Jazeera Arabic. He's been detained since August of last year, and he's been on a hunger strike. Today is the 85th day for him to be on a hunger strike. And his wife joined him on a hunger strike 2 weeks ago. Only she said, I want to see how he feels. That is the sad reality that we have. And I think we need to be counting the days that they're detained until justice is served. Mohammed, Peter, and Bahir have been detained for 107 days. Abdullah Shami for 243 days. Thank you.